Okay, Mr. Gitteh is all yours, please.
Well, thank you, Dr. Conte. Thank you, everybody, for being here again this Sunday. Dr. Conte, it's Super Bowl today, so we're
Yeah.
probably gonna um, have a pretty strong program today.
Okay.
The Cincinnati Bengals are playing the Rams today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be rooting for the Bengals for my friend Obi Silla in Ohio. So I hope they win. But Dr. Conte, we are today going to talk briefly about the upcoming National Assembly elections in the Gambia, and we will also talk briefly about the clashes between MFDC rebels and Senegalese soldiers on Gambian soil. I know you ran a program on this sometime last week, so and that has been very exhaustive of the incidents that happened in the Gambia. So we'll briefly touch on that, and you can give a little bit of a highlight from your program that you run on this. And then lastly, I briefly want to talk about Ahmed Gitteh's incident with the first lady of the Gambia. Gitteh had a problem with the first lady, and apparently he is expelled. Well, I probably should not use the word expelled, but he left the Gambia very aggrieved. So we will talk about that briefly. Normally I don't talk about. I would not have talked about Gitteh's, but Gitteh issue is of public interest. He, I want to be respectful for privacy. I'm a very private person myself, and in America we pride ourselves for our values of privacy. Everybody has a right to be left alone. But this is a public issue. It is quite implicative of the Gambian presidency and Gambian politics. So because of that, I would like to weigh in a little bit on it, and also the fact that Gitteh himself made this a public issue by coming out on social media and speaking out about his side of the story. So that makes it, that put it in the public domain. So because of that, I really want to talk a little bit about it. But we're going to start off with the National Assembly elections that are coming in April this year. Dr. Conte, without taking much time, we know the IEC, Independent Electoral Commission, has started issuing nomination papers to potential candidates who will be seeking for seats in the National Assembly in April. What is quite interesting at this time is that there are some shifts in the political landscape again, which is not quite unexpected. In that some key participants, key members may not be running again. Like Khalifa will not be running again, I'm sure. But also that we are seeing that some important women, female candidates, are coming up as well. And this is a very positive direction that is happening in Gambian politics. Doi, I believe, as of now, is putting up 2 female candidates in Serekunda West, I believe, and also in Latrikunda, I believe. Aminata Korea is running for Doi in Latrikunda, and Fatu Sow Gitteh is running for Doi in Serekunda West, I believe. It is also important to note that Yakumba Gitteh, I understand, is interested in running for UDP in Serekunda West. Yakumba has been a nominated member of the National Assembly, we would all remember when he was nominated by President Barrow, when he came in newly as a coalition president. But later, Barrow and Yakumba fell apart over the issue of UDP. UDP. The UDP and Barrow had a fracture, and then Yakumba fell into that, and Barrow tried to dismiss him. The matter went to court, and then the court ruled against Barrow's action. So Yakumba remained as the nominated member of parliament up to today, but that term will end in April. And so I understand she is interested in running for UDP in Senegal. So that's an important development as well, a positive one for that matter, indicating more women participation in Gambian politics. Also, I learned that CS Nene Frida Gomez, I believe, is interested in running for CA. I think also in Serekunda West, I believe so. So that is also, Nene is another very important woman in Gambian politics. So her participation in the National Assembly elections and her possible election to office to the National Assembly would be a very important development. It will add a lot of value to the National Assembly. We will see how all this plays out, but Dr. Conte, the real interesting thing as we inch toward the National Assembly elections is the fact that the Barrow coalition, the NPP-led coalition that brought Barrow to his second term at the State House, seems to be falling apart. My understanding is that NPP is interested in running for parliamentary elections. They're planning to go solo. They're not going to form that grand coalition that they had built up during the presidential campaign. So NPP, my understanding is going to leave Foni to APRC, but they're going to put up NPP candidates everywhere else in the country. So all of these parties that supported NPPs in the presidential elections are quite apprehensive about NPP's motives. So far, NPP is not coordinating its activities with these coalition partners. They are doing things on their own as if they are going solo, completely solo, independent of those who supported them in the presidential election. So concerns are that NPP could be very disappointed if they decide to go solo in the parliamentary elections. But apparently, as we speak now, that seems to be the direction NPP is going. And that raises a number of questions. One is that does NPP and NPP leadership really recognize the value that the coalition partners, namely PPP, APRC, the value they brought to NPP? Whether their participation was crucial to NPP's victory in the presidential election. There seemed to be a feeling in the NPP that they could have done this by themselves, even without APRC and PPP's support. So we will see how this plays out, but that seems to be the feeling in NPP leadership right now. So we want to see how moving forward, NPP will address this issue of the aggrievement of its coalition partners. Because I know inside APRC and inside PPP, they are very discontented about what NPP is doing right now, leaving them behind and running this parliamentary election as a solo party. Dr. Conte and Dr. Jallo, what do you guys make of, particularly the apparent fissure, apparent fracture in the NPP-led coalition, if there's any at all? There's a lot of talk about it right now. I do know that there's a lot of this contentment is growing within APRC and within PPP about the silence in NPP and the indication that NPP is moving ahead with their selection of candidates without consultation with their coalition partners, APRC and PPP particularly, and no meeting has been called to discuss a strategy of how they're going to face this, how they're going to approach this parliamentary election. Do you guys have anything on this? Anything you might be aware of? Dr. Jallo, Dr. Conte.
Well, Dr. Conte can go ahead. I'm just joining in. Let me just have a context.
Well, they didn't have any agreement before the presidential election as to candidates that they're supposed to select for National Assembly. I don't think I'm in a position to judge either side. But again, we Gambians have been known to not unite, or we can come together and we betray. So, but by NPP giving Foni, not deciding to fill any seats in Foni, that is something, that's commendable. But I'm looking at the last election results, and we have to factor everything in here. In Sarakunda West, it looks like APRC will be the winner, and Taranding, APRC will be the winner. Bunangakunda, APRC will be the winner, because if you look at I don't know whether these people actually sit down to look at past election results, because APRC is intact. And NPP will be a combination of what? UDP and the remnants, or whatever remnants. So if they decide not to come together, APRC, in my view, will be victorious in KMC. I will give Sarakunda West to APRC, even Joshua to APRC. And I will tell you Radakunda Sabiji to APRC and Talende. So we welcome women running for office. It's a high time that happened. But what I just don't understand about us as Gambians, it seems like we can never get together, unite for anything we stand for, other than fighting against Jamia at the last hour. It seems like everybody wants to be their own, to make names for themselves, when our country actually now is going through a lot of changes, that even the trade minister talking about something, and everyone is talking some crap about that, without even coming to solutions as to we need to have an alternate port. Banjul cannot be the port of entry for our goods when the ships pass other places. So I don't want to judge NPP, but again, I think the biggest winner will be APRC.
Dr. Jallo.
Yeah, I might not have much to say about, because I don't want to dwell into politics. But I think if there is a fissure that is going on with the NPP, I'm not in a better position to give an advice, because I'm not a member of NPP. But from wearing the political hat, I will definitely make sure that the issue is, when it comes to politics, there is always what we call marriage of convenience. But these differences and political differences, it can best be anchored and best be established based on what we call political competence. And political competence is all about coming up with people coming up with different, differing, and competing values, on beliefs and ideologies. But now with the MPP, I don't know whether there was an agreement that was established between MPP and other coalition members. But when it comes to National Assembly, for me, I want to see a National Assembly members that are neutral. I want to see the National Assembly to be, to be filled by opposition. Because when you have a parliamentarian, particularly a National Assembly, you need to have people who understand policies, because that's a very critical house. And the people's house, if we give it to NPP, that simply means that we are done. Because who's gonna hold account the executive? When it comes to national development, we should, sometimes we need to look at things differently, because this is a very critical election. But in the Gambian context, it's the presidential election that matters most. And when it comes to national assembly, nobody cares, because nobody cares who's coming in. But here, the fundamental factor here is to look at core competence. Because when you are bringing national assembly members, you are talking about people that have to be coming up with convergence of policies, that has to look at a thorough array of issues, policies that are within the sub-region. So how do you make the Gambia to be very competitive when it comes to even policy development? So this is where it matters. It's not about a person being there or having an experience. It's not about a person having an education, a bachelor's degree or master's degree. It's about experience. It's about competence. It's about understanding. And how do you also apply these policies that you understand? Because you're not going to be there for yourself. You are representing a constituent. So I think we need to go to the drawing board and look definitely what we need to have in the people's house. Because that hallowed chamber is a very sacred institution that holds dear the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jallo. Absolutely, yes. The National Assembly is a very important place. But my take is that I do understand that the members of the National Assembly need to be people of very high quality, people of knowledge, people of clout, people of integrity, and people of a high sense of independence. Um, it is only in that way that they can deliver their duties as legislators and the representatives of the people. Um, I usually often um, want to believe that the president uh, uh, typically should have a national assembly that supports his agenda. Because the president, we have a division of power, separation of powers. But the president is elected by the people to carry out a mandate to deliver development and deliver development to them, and also to safeguard their security. Now he needs a national assembly that is supportive of his agenda, and but at the same time, that national assembly has a duty to carry out checks and balances. So I typically want a national assembly that is majority, that has a majority that stand for the president's agenda, while at the same time um, exercising their duty to carry out checks and balances. Um, if we go back to the coalition days, 2017, when UDP had a joint press conference with NRP and GMC. The argument that Dabo made for a tactical alliance for the parliamentary election was that they need a parliament that is supportive of the president's agenda. So I think that is a good argument. The president um, um, deserves a cabinet that supports his agenda. So if the president has a majority from his party in parliament, it is a very good thing. Nonetheless, those members, even though they may share the same party with the president, we expect them to stand up when a particular piece of legislation is not in their view, in their clear conscience, is not in the interest of the Gambian people. That is what I expect to see uh, in the National Assembly. But again, this depends very squarely on the kind of the caliber of the people we have in terms of knowledge, in terms of integrity, in terms of principles. Dr. Conte.
Well, in my view, the president should stay out of nominating candidates for the National Assembly because I believe in separation of powers. And we these current National Assembly members, I call them momones because very few of them speak.
Right.
And are you telling me that most of the president's agendas is a budget buster? Uh, how many of the folks do you know who can sit down and say that when they took office and now looking at the inflation rate, looking at the devaluation of the Gambian dollar, say, how many of them can sit down to think to say that during the rainy season, with all the water that we have coming in from Casamas, we don't have any storage for water, no dams. All our water will go to where to River Gambia. How many of them have even sat down to say that the drilling at Denton Bridge could create some problems for the bridge? Because if you decrease the depth of the sand, it's going to create erosion. So, and then how many of them have looked at the Minister of Finance's budget, where it was increased almost 50%? And then you look at the Ministry of Public Works, their budget was increased 456%. How many of them have looked at the agriculture? That agriculture's budget appropriation is less than half a billion dollars. Have they even looked at the what we call the centralized services, whereby you have a minister who has control over 1.1 billion dollars of his ministry, and also of the 2.1 billion. How many of them actually can look at the Gambia's budget and tell us uh, what the current budget deficits that they had? And then can you tell me, as a National Assembly member, the Director General of Gambia Revenue Authority, Dr. Jallo's old place, that they are bragging that what the government asks them to collect, they collect 100% of it, which to me is unthinkable. Because if you're going to estimate revenue, you must have maybe at least even 0.5% of uncollectibles. So now you're telling me that since this gentleman, Mr. Dabo, said that they collected 100% of the targeted revenue, no one can say that we let's try to move the goalpost. So if you are earning or you are collecting 7 billion, and then you went up to 10 billion, now you went up to 13 billion, and then you move it to 17 billion. The guy is telling you the previous year we collected 100%. Why can't you sit down and say, oh, maybe we need to go 24 billion? And then then Gambia never had a fiscal surplus. Because I talked to a former permanent secretary. He said, oh, but that's going to boost our expenditure. I said, no, you're going to increase the revenue, but expenditure, you're still going to hold it. So, and then you look at the school feeding program in the country. How many of these people, even sit down to say that, oh, where I come from, kids are going hungry? And then you look at the mess that we have, the traffic jams we have in our country, and every single time they want to concentrate everything in Combo St. Mary or KMC, and maybe part of Sedimentary. No one can sit down and talk about the fact that we need to have alternate ports. We cannot use Banjul as a port of entry for our goods. So there are so many things, and who has even talked about the fact that people are dying in our country, and no one is keeping record of all those things. No one can even sit down to say that people who left Gambia to go as medical tourists to Senegal, how many died there, and those who came, What duration of time did they stay before they died? So this you look at every single day people are dying. So we don't want no movement national assembly. The local people are going to elect for people who are famous for football. That's it. And these people cannot express themselves in parliament. That is why, in my case for Convoy, somebody approached me of a candidate. I say, have him call me, because I just want to quiz him on the policies that he can bring. I don't want to be part of selecting a candidate who, when they go to parliament, they sit down, they cannot even say a single sentence. Look at what the minister of finance, when they asking about the inflation, the increase in prices. The guy was reading from a prepared statement. Cannot even sit down and say, "Oh, let me put this down. Let me address parliament."
Right.
So these are the problems we have in our country. So we want to politicize everything. Sometimes we blame the president, but I think we blame our own people. What I envision for Gambia is we need to decentralize. I mean, you have a virgin area, North Bank Division. Sorry, Bara. Why can't we have a port in Bara? Why can't we have a performing arts center in Bara? Or moving it all the way to Jarasoma? But we want to have everything in the urban area, and traffic congestion is just horrendous. So, and no one can even sit down and look at our education to see that every single time, how many kids in the ninth grade pass the ninth grade examination to matriculate to high school? Do we even have 40%? So which means that 60% of our kids are sitting down or going to school. And and up to now, they still cannot tell us the exam results of the WAEC. They can't. They only will tell us the top three. And now they want to have what? More universities. So these are problems that we can still see. Oh, very soon in the Gambia, you're going to be a lawyer. You might end up going to the police to work, or even be a taxi driver, because we have saturation of lawyers. This is what is happening in our country. So for me, I will not support any candidate from my constituency who cannot tell me what they stand for. Because if you look at the budget deficit of our country, it's alarming. And the president even himself said that we can no longer rely on what? External aid. We have revenue to collect in our country. Nobody is talking about corruption. Do you have a corruption champion? A person who can be a member of parliament or national assembly who can say, when I get there, this is what I'm going to do. Have they addressed the laziness of the Gambian youth? To a point where we can say that if you graduate from high school, we're going to have national youth service. You are going to go out there and work and work for 1 year to get a certificate on that. So what is happening, is that we blame the president for everything, but squarely, I think, in my view, we are responsible because we vote we bring people to parliament who cannot express themselves. You cannot even count 5. If Halifa is gone, then we are dead. Who else can go out there and stand up? And that young lady, she's not going to win. I hope she does not win, because we don't need her in parliament. I'm not going to say her name. You all know what I'm talking about. Gambia, this is very sad when you look at Gambia. So, I mean, every single day you look, somebody is dead in our country. Out of what? And then when you call them, they say, yeah, Corotele. Just the National Assembly member for Banjul Central. I mean, if you think about what happened to that man, he should not have died, man. But if you say that, they say you don't believe in Allah. Look at all this. No, Gambia, Gambia's case, is I don't know where we are going. I refuse to blame the president. I never see anybody like you. I think all of us collectively are part of this problem. Because if you go to Gambia, you need something, you have to bribe somebody. Is that the fault of the president? No, we have to change our attitude. So what I'm saying here is that we need to have a parliament that's going to be totally indifferent with the executive, because the way things are going, if we're going to put everything on capital expenditure in our country, we're going to have hyperinflation. That's Dr. That's Dr. Jallo's area, and I'm telling you, the Gambian currency is gonna depreciate to a point where before 3 more years, the Gambian currency will go in value by 25%. Let me just rest that case there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Conte. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. I do have, Dr. Gallo, you have anything to say? Otherwise, I have just one
No,
thing to touch on
no, I'm
the
good.
parliament
You can go ahead.
election.
Dr. Conte has, exhausted that area. That's good.
Okay. The fact that NPP is inclined to go solo into the parliamentary elections, and considering that the new cabinet is yet to be selected, Barrow is holding off forming a new cabinet until after the election. Is there indication that if NPP goes into the parliamentary election solo without its coalition partners on the wings, would there be at this stage? Can that be some indication of how the new cabinet is going to look like? Will Barrow, if NPP goes solo into the parliamentary elections and succeeds, um, at this moment, can we safely say, would there be any indication that Barrow may actually disappoint its coalition partners in the formation of his cabinet?
Um, can I come in?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the context I have in that regard is that I think we are headed to a very long summer. And when I said a very long summer, the future is very bleak, it's uncertain. And then we're headed to a very political divisiveness as a country because it's going to be more polarized. And then we're not going to focus because we are going to be directionless. So we are not going to be directed towards the vision of developing the Gambia. Because even though we want to make sure that we become a Gambia that is emergent or emerging Gambia, it's not going to be realized. Because as of now, if MPP decides to go solo, their initial agreement that they had with the coalition partners of how they're going to distribute power sharing when a new government comes in, once they install a new government, that's where the problem is. And then things will start going out. The ugly bellies will be coming out. So now, are we going to waste another 5 years of what actually happened from 2016 to 2021? So the Gambia, we are in a very critical situation. I would call the Gambia is now in what we call the Bermuda Triangle, because the future is very bleak, and I'm very worried because I'm not in the Gambia as of now, but I understand what is going on in the Gambia, and I'm somebody who is very passionate. I do my research and I understand the Gambian context. Even Facebook alone will mirror you and tells you the DNA of Gambia and what we expect, what is going to happen post April 9, 2022 parliamentary elections. Me as of now, if you want to make sure that we have a Gambia that is united, a Gambia that focuses on the development, and a Gambia does not see itself individually, but we see itself as a collective, collectively, as a commonwealth. And then how do we, harness, enhance, and then embrace one another, and so that we can come together collectively and join our hands and put all hands on deck to make sure that we develop the Gambia that we want. The Gambia that we want is running for development. It's been almost from 1965 to date. There's nothing moving in that country. And we have lost everything, virtually everything. So how do we make sure that we come back and regain back to, of our lost glory? So this is the moment now. And the moment is on us. It is either we do it or we lose it all. And when we lost it all, that means we don't have anybody to blame but ourselves. And then we're going to create a kind of a banter that will definitely create a very hopeless future, particularly for the unborn generation. And we don't want that. As of now, the Gambia is so much indebted in all angles. We have lost our goodwill. And what actually happened, we have lost our goodwill because we were much more into political expedience and not focusing on how best to tap all of those resources. So instead of focusing to develop and make sure that we tap those resources and then invest those resources into critical sectors, we fail to do that. Because each and every one of us in Africa, particularly in Africa and Gambia example, we focus much on what we call the stomach infrastructure in African politics, because each and everybody that comes into government or comes into office, the first things or first priority is not about the institution. It's about himself and his family. And then, and if we fail to do that, addressing issues, when you are given a responsibility, it's a personal responsibility, but it's a collective effort. And that personal responsibility comes with you. You have to internalize what is expected of you. Can you deliver what is expected? What are the key deliverables? How do you ensure that those smart objectives are anchored on something that can definitely, transform the Gambia so that you can position the Gambia where we want to be? So we have a long way. So I will stop from here. I'm really worried.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Jallo. Thank you very much for that. Dr. Kote, you have anything to say on this before I move?
Oh yeah. The Bukai candidate is very frightening. Someone just told me that Senegal is building a port in Ziguinchor.
Yep.
And if that happens, we are screwed. I think from Brikama to Ziguinchor, it takes you what, 2 hours? So what will be the point of us having that bridge over in Yelitenda Bambatenda? This is sad. So, but is this, do we always have to blame the president? The Gambia Ports Authority, what are they thinking about? Because Banjul is only, you have two ways going to Banjul: by land, one way, and by the ferry or boat. If we have a disaster at Denton Bridge, we are screwed. And now what are they doing over there? Trying to do sand mining right at the bridge. And when you talk about it, they say you are jealous. I think I just need to stop here. The president alone cannot be part of this problem, because the folks who are civil servants are the ones who should be engineers of policy. But are they delivering it? No, I don't think so. They are all interested in buying what? Humongous what? SUVs, big houses, and if you're a permanent secretary, you must have 3 wives.
Thank you, Dr. Conte. Thank you very much. I think we're going to move on now to the second topic we want to talk about. That is we had the conflict in Casamance and its spillover into the Gambia. Senegalese forces, part of the economic forces, had a clash with MFDC rebels on Gambian soil nearly a couple of weeks ago. This has riled up the Gambian population a lot, particularly the people of Foni, who has been in the crossfires between in this conflict for decades. And I've listened to a lot of people comment on this issue. And what comes out of these discussions is that Gambian soil cannot be used to launch attacks into Casamance. Gambia must do everything it can to stay out of the Casamance conflict, and that Senegalese forces should not confront MFDC rebels who are trying to bring in timber into the Gambia. Their purpose is narrowly limited to economic functions, not as a border guard between Senegal and the Gambia. And what I want to say briefly on this is that Foni has been a victim of this conflict for a long time, and partly because of geography. Foni has a very close proximity to Casamance. And the political changes in West Africa has forced MFDC to move away from the Guinea-Bissau border towards the Gambian border. And that directly put Foni at risk of skirmishes between Senegalese forces and the MFDC forces in Foni. Foni people their security is threatened by the presence of MFDC rebels right by their border. But one might also say that the people of Foni must not be seen to be sympathetic to the cause of MFDC. I know Gambia and Casamance and Senegal, to a general in general, are very close relatives. We are the same people. But when it comes to political divisions, Gambia is a separate entity from Senegal. And Gambian citizens must not be seen to be supportive or even sympathetic to the rebels, a rebellion in Casamance. There's a potential to destabilize the Gambia. And illegal logging is something that Gambia needs to do everything to stop. I know it is probably the lifeline of the rebels in Casamance, but Gambia cannot be used as a market for that kind of illegal activity. Gambia needs to mount a robust security at the border to prevent this. Senegalese do not have to be involved in this, but Gambia needs to be very proactive to cut off MFDC's financial interests across the border into the Gambia. Um, it is a very complicated issue. I know during Gambia's time, MFDC found Gambia as very the rebellion in Casamance has found Gambia as a very friendly place, as a place where they could come in and recharge, uh, take some rest from the war, recharge, get supplies, and also use Gambia as a market for their products to finance their war. Some even went as far as they were getting weapon supplies from, in the past, from both Guinea-Bissau as well as the Gambia. Uh, but I think the only thing one can say clearly on this is that Gambian soil cannot be used as a launching pad for war in Casamance. Senegalese forces must be totally cut off from making any attack on the rebels from the Gambian side. Their duties must be limited directly to economic functions, but also Gambia needs to cut off MFDC's rebels' financial sources in the country. Um, and the people of Foni need to be sensitized and be aware that they must not be sympathetic or even supportive of the rebel cause across the border in Casamance. That much I just wanted to say on this issue briefly because Gambian people have been really riled up about this. Many people are concerned about Gambia being drawn into the war between Senegal and Casamance. Dr. Conte, Dr. Jallo, briefly on this, and then we'll move on to wrap this up. So,
With the issue of customers, I think it's a security concern as a country because I don't think the Senegalese government or the MFDC supposed to take their war into Gambian territory. But I also think also we're also responsible partly because we are also part of it. As a country, especially as a sovereign and an independent country, the security of our country, territorial integrity and security of the country is very paramount. That shouldn't be compromised. And even though we understand that the Gambia, in 2016, something happened because we had a political impasse that resulted into having an economic force to come into the country to restore democracy, and democratic rule by installing President Adama Barrow when Yahya Jammeh decided not to leave. But I don't think the country is at war, and I am somebody who, as a proponent of against foreign forces in a domestic because I realize that it has a lot of implications to lives and livelihood. And but now, as of now, we understand that with the current situation in West Africa, particularly with coup has been baby manufactured as something that's now resurfaced itself, it's ugly air. So you never know which country is going to be next. and everything is possible. You cannot take it out of the equation. But notwithstanding, I believe also the Gambia government is also responsible. Why I say so is that because if you have licensed people to do timber importations through a ministry, through a government institution that have been signed and sealed, that's an indication of you being complicit of aiding and abetting an illegal trade, because you understand from the context from the word go, rosewood timber is not available in the Gambia. We don't have trees of that nature in the country. And then if timber are coming from the customers province of Senegal, that indicates that that's an illegal trade that is going on, and the Gambia should not be a party to it. Because even though we have our borders should be secured and manned. Even though we understand the porosity of our borders, that you cannot even you cannot even man our borders because of the way it is open. We have open fields that anybody can jump in and just enter the country and move. Anything can happen. That's how it is done in Africa, because we have the problem of border. Border securitization is a problem. Um, so now the onus now lies is the government of the Gambia engaging the government of Senegal and also engaging the MFDC, because this is what we call, when it comes to political development and ensuring peace and stability, is whereby you have a tripartite. A tripartite whereby three parties will come together and see how best we can cool down the situation. And we understand the customers has been going there for more than 30 years now. They're looking for independence, but that is their situation with Senegal. But what is triggering that is another debate. I'm not going to bring a historical genesis of what actually triggered the customers, war. But the issue is, does it worth it that even we have to fight between the places of Gambia and Senegal just recently because of independence? Does it worth it? So what are we fighting independence for? I think the Gambia government, and I also applauded Gambia government in making sure deploying our security at the border. It is very critical, because I understand there is what we call a security polarization, because people also they already have a mindset that the Senegalese forces that are out there is because we understand from a security perspective. I'm not a security expert, but with the lens of my travel and how I perceive things, I can decode and I can denote certain things and I can understand from that perspective. But I won't go into details of what security entails. But for the experts, they're supposed to come in. This is where it comes, which is very important. Our security analysts in the country, we have security analysts, but why are they keeping quiet? So you hardly hear them. And this is where it matters most, because it's their area of expertise, it's their area of concentration. And this is how they were able to help people so that they can educate people who don't understand the implications of security. So now the issue is either the government of the Gambia stop the timber importation that is coming from Senegal, or the war will continue. Because the Gambia is also facilitating and is financing that trade. Because if the rebels of Senegal are cutting those trees, and how do they finance themselves? Is through the cutting and the selling of those illegal trades, particularly those timber that are also being used, that have been exported through our ports. So if they do that, you cut them short, and then that is the fuel that gives them the gas to finance their war. So the Gambia should play a part so that we can, come and reconcile and just move ahead and see how best we can develop. I understand when it comes to African context, provinces or regions would always try to look for a way of seceding from the main country because of certain development that are not coming in. Because you can cite example in Nigeria, that happens to the Niger Delta. So all of these things we understand, because customer is the economic or the agricultural basket of Senegal. But there's not so much development that is being translated. So this is where they also have their anger, they have their issues. So now the onus is about not Gambia addressing it. It's Senegal government in doing that. But what we can do is to facilitate and see how best we can reconcile, because we are two people. Customers and Foni, they are two people. They share the same history, they share the same culture. But the Gambia cannot be a launch pad for Senegal. And then the rebel also cannot use the Gambia as a financial base whereby they can also derive some income. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jallo. Dr. Conte.
Well, for me, since I live on the southern side, I practically rode a bicycle not only one time, several times, from my town to Umorto. And I don't even think it's 12 miles. In Umorto, so you have some compounds in the Gambia. They have farmland in Casamas. And you may have some compounds in Casamas and farmland in the Gambia. Do we even know the people who actually us who we stay with, who we meet in the villages, whether they are part of the resistance forces? And I was told that there are two for the opposite forces: those who are not cutting down timber to sell, and those who are selling it. But if Gambia is re-exporting timber, then I believe we are contributing to the problem. The economic forces from Senegal should not be in Foni at all. I think they should station them somewhere else and have other economic forces coming in. If you go to Senegal, you visit. You go to Casamas, you visit. You visit. It will alarm you. But I'm not here to fight for Casamas issue because I'm telling you, even in Bullock, someone went to his farm and they had he stepped on a mine and died. So we are so close because if you look at the proximity, even in Gunjur by the seaside, you walk around. You if you go a little bit further down, it's a Casamas border. You can catch a canoe from Khartoum to Casamas. We were not there when the white people during their Berlin conference divided us as pizza.
Right.
We have the same families in Casamas as in the Gambia. So I want you all to reflect. Maybe some of you were not born or you were very, very young. I want you to think about the Bissau War, how terrified those people were. Do we really want to revisit that thing? No. So if the Senegalese army is so strong, what I don't understand, how come they cannot go inside the bush and flush these people out? I don't think they can do that. But the Gambia should not be used as a ground against the resistance forces in Casamas. And it is another disturbing thing that if you are a Jola, they perceive you to be a rebel. And this is disturbing because in Casamas, you have Fulas there too. The two people who died, uh, the two guys, that died, they were all from where? They were all from Kolda area. And Salifu Sajo said this: Abdul Juf's children did not come here to fight. Abdullah Wad's kids did not come here to fight. Makisala's kids did not come here to fight. They say they send the young kids from Casamas to come back to their area to fight their own people. So we need peace, man. We don't need war. I've seen this with my own eyes as a little kid, seeing people fleeing from Guinea-Bissau. I mean, even a small little helicopter going around, and these people were on their rice fields. The woman will run and say, "Ikanale, kanale, kanale." I remember a lady who came to Faraba, frightened with her family, looking for Konta Kunda, because that's what they were doing. If they go to any Fula village, they're going to ask for Jallo. If you are Jallo, they're going to ask for Jallo Kunda. Because the first people they meet, if they know that they speak a different language and you are among them, guess what? They're going to use their last name and say, "Do you have this here?" So I mean, come on, we don't. As poor as we are in our country, if we get involved in this fight, my friend, it's going to further, destroy our country. Because I mean, come on, you can be in Casamas, your farm is in the Gambia, or your compound is in the Gambia, your farm is there. So if these people are going around, putting up mines everywhere, let's think about the safety of our country, our people. Do you know that you cannot drive a vehicle at night to Ziguinchor? They always warn you only to go during the day. So these people are in the bush. The Senegalese army is on the road, but they cannot go in there to do what? to get them out. But our country should not be used as and then we shouldn't be blaming Foni alone because I come from Combo East and those people came there. In fact, one guy who bought property over there, they told him that this part belongs to Gambia. But guess what? The villagers got together the next day. They went to a small little village called Tambakunda, not the well-known Tambakunda, but there's another Tambakunda in around next to Umarto. The people, the elders went there. They sat down with them, but it was the rebels, and these rebels also moved. They are also in Som. It's not only in Kanilai. So Senegal, with all their mighty, they should be coming. They should come down and if they can be on the road, but again, we don't want them to use our country, come from Senegal to come into our country and go and get these people. Our sovereignty is our right, and to, to have what is going on, I'm not in support of it.
Thank you, Dr. Conte. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Jallo. I just wanted to, the last leg, we're about to end this briefly.
Okay.
I'm going to briefly comment. Dr. Jallo, do you have anything to add before I go on to close this down?
So this is the last one. I didn't.
Yeah, this is the main topic. I'm gonna briefly talk about Ahmed Gitteh and the First Lady's issue, which is normally would not be. I won't require you guys to make a comment on that unless you want to. But I just want to make
that one is critical. I think that one I will intervene. I have to interject in that one. I'll wait for that one because
Oh, wow.
issues like that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So lastly, I just want to talk about Gitteh was on social media. I was saying that normally I wouldn't want to talk about this. I would treat it as a private matter, but Gitteh came to the public social media and made it a public issue. So I think he has waived his privacy on this. We all live in the U.S. with how much we value our privacy. We all have a right to be left alone. But this matter involves Gambian politics and our presidency, and our First Lady was involved in it. And beyond that, Gitteh reached out to the public and laid out his case against the First Lady and the presidency. Because of that, I wanted to make a brief comment on that. And this is the fact of Gitteh's claim. And Gitteh I'm talking about is Ahmed Gitteh, resident in Canada, but spent many months in the Gambia campaigning for the president's re-election. The president is re-elected, but during the campaign, Gitteh had a problem with the First Lady. Apparently, he was caught in between the two wives of the president. We all know our president is polygamous. He has two wives. One of them is the First Lady. The other, the First Lady is Fatuba Barrow. I believe she's the second wife. And the older wife, Sajo, is the Lady Sajo, is not enjoying the title of the First Lady. It is important to note that during the campaign, these two ladies were involved vigorously in the campaign for the president's re-election, which is not a very smart idea. Jawara had two wives when he was in power, but the two ladies were not involved in politics. The fact that the Barrow's two wives were involved in political campaign and they were held by NPP officials and prominent members made it quite possible that there will be friction. The tensions in the White House, in the State House, internal domestic issues may spill over into the campaign scene, and that is exactly what happened. Gitteh has been caught up between the internal dynamics of Barrow's household, to be specific, between the two wives, between the First Lady and Madam Sajo. Gitteh, according to his own discussions on social media, he said he was campaigning for the president very vigorously, but then he was also assigned to manage the First Lady's campaign. And then at some point, he was seen helping the first wife, Madam Sajo, which actually did not go down very well with the first lady. And this came at a time when the first lady has already been receiving information that Gitteh has been undermining her efforts, in the sense that there were a number of women groups who were trying to reach out to the first lady as their mother, and Gitteh has been discouraging that or blocking that. So the tension has been brewing up, and then he ended up in a situation where the two were confronting each other over the phone and exchanging undignified remarks to each other. To put this in a nutshell, I think Gitteh made a colossal mistake by, first of allowing herself to argue with the first lady. You can't win that. You're not going to get Barra's support when you have a problem with his wife. Don't even make a mistake, doing that. He should have ended that friction right there and profusely apologize to the first lady, never to do this again. It was a mistake on his part, and possibly involve some important independent third parties to appeal to the president and the first lady to forgive him. Allowing yourself to come between the president's two wives, you can't win that situation. That's totally fatal. You cannot survive it. And much more to go to the point where you will argue with the first lady. You can't survive that. At no circumstances you're gonna survive that. So I think, to put it in a nutshell, Gitteh made a terrible, terrible mistake. Well, if his goal is to make a point, then he's probably okay. He may have made his point to the first lady. But if his goal is to stay endeared to the president and to stay in the president's green books, he should have ended this from the get-go and apologize and get out of the whole thing. Totally, not to escalate it by arguing with the president. And his remarks on social media did not even help, because at some point he was even making remarks that can constitute a threat to the first lady and the president, and which is potentially quite criminal. That can only land him in further trouble. You cannot issue a threat against the first lady and the president. Saying that wherever he has the opportunity, he will fight the first lady, or he will do. He was essentially making threats. I don't think that's very helpful to his cause. But it also brings another thing to the open, is that Dr. Conte, Dr. Jallo, all of these people who were involved in the campaigns, various campaigns, the same for UDP as well, and NPP, all these Gambians who returned to the country to participate in these campaigns, for UDP, for NPP, they were all, invariably, all of them are looking for positions. They all anticipate a payback from whoever wins. And, the Gitteh and others who returned to the Gambia from the diaspora to campaign very hard for the president's re-election, in a way, and you can see this from Gitteh's own speeches on social media, there is this anticipation that they will be rewarded with government jobs as a result of their participation in this, in the re-election of the president. The same thing goes to UDP. All these UDP people who left and returned to the country to campaign for Davos election were all in anticipation of a reward, a payoff, in terms of government jobs, for their participation and contributions to Davos election. And I'm gonna also extend this to even some business people. One prominent one is Alaji Conte. I know Dr. Conte is related to Alaji Conte, so I'm not I'm not going to let him
Go
comment
ahead,
on
go
this.
ahead and say your piece. Go
He
ahead.
will be obviously biased. They're closely related. So, Dr. Conte, no comment from you on this. It's just my perspective, and you may not like what I said, but
That's up to you. Go ahead.
we value free speech here. So you and I can trash this out later on separately in private. But Alaji Conte is one thing that was caught up in this kind of issue also. Conte took up a lot of risk, backing UDP financially and morally, and even brought supporters to UDP, namely Ramu Sabali and others, um, in the high expectation that UDP will win and that he will be rewarded with government contracts and his business can flourish in the country under UDP administration. UDP lost, and now he is in the country. He has to deal with Barrow government. He has nowhere to go, and remember, he has some legal problems with the government, which could have serious, serious implications on his business. Um, Luckily, uh, Alaji Conte defected back to NPP. I think that's a very smart decision for him, and I think that's a very good decision, and I wish him very well. And I'm glad that um, even the information minister on the borough had made it clear that the government will work with him, and they welcome him into the fold. He was previously a friend of Barrow, so this is not a defection. They call it not a defection, but he has come home. And that is very positive. I think that is very, very good. Um, I would have advised him from the onset not to publicly be involved in politics the way he did. He could support whoever he wanted, but I mean, as a businessman, he should be very discreet. He can finance any political party he wanted, recruit people for them, but very, very discreetly, not as publicly as he did. That was extremely risky. So, but it brought to light all of these political investments that people made, expecting a reward with government jobs and government contracts when their choice of candidate wins to the White House. Dr. Conde, Dr. Jallo, briefly.
Yeah, thank you that you have brought in a very salient issue that needs to be talked about. It's a very topical issue. I think the issue of the Gitteh is, I will call it the Gitteh Gate, is if you go to management or social science, this is what we call a leader and a subordinate undermining, social undermining. This is what we call a manager and a subordinate social undermining in this context. Because in ASMET, whatever we do, there's always also from the perspective of HR, what we call stress appraisal. In stress appraisal, there is what we call harm dimension. And harm dimension has to do with when you are angry, when you are stressed, when you are in despair, and then when you also when you are disgusted, or when you feel like you are rejected, or maybe you feel like you are not being treated as somebody who's important. So our people, particularly the younger ones, do not understand what it takes to be a person. To be a person, what I mean by to be a person is to understand and to read well, to understand context, and context matters. And then how do you position yourself in anywhere you find yourself? And this is what I found in Gambia, that we have a missing link. Individually, we have a problem. It seems like we are not learning, and we will never learn. People are always very hesitant. They will always want to be at the forefront of trying to make sure that they drive relevance, so that they will say that this is what Gitteh has done is the worst thing that an individual will have done. I don't want to talk about individual personality, because the issue is you cannot bring the issue of the first lady to a public fora whereby you want to put it into a public opinion so that people can also castigate. And it has not been well. Since the lady came in, I don't support her, I don't know her, but I respect her as the first lady because she's the wife of the president and she is a leader, she is a mother. In as much we have issues that we don't like her, there are certain things that we don't need to bring into the public. There are certain things we get addressed. And if Gitteh was somebody that was a very good foot soldier of the MPP, who have moved from PPP, APRC, Yaya Jammeh, to now Barrow, and now he can even got the guts because he was promised to be a youth minister. People here, you have to allow me to talk, because today I'm gonna talk. So I'm going to share my context because this is
Yeah.
very critical as Gambians. We need to do, the truth, uncomfortable truth. Nobody wants to hear about it. But for us, particularly the younger generations, we lost it. Because we lost it. Why? Because we are driven with anger, we have ego. And secondly, we are very arrogant. And we don't take our time to wait for our time. Everything that you see is destined and it only comes at the time that is appointed. We don't have to be in a haste and to be hurried. We have to wait. And we don't have to position ourselves at the altar of convenience whereby we please people or try to even lick their boots so that they can give us position. No. You have to sell yourself. It's about this world is driven by talent, education, skills, experience, and competence. And you don't have to go into individual to promise you of something. Now, what Gitteh has done, yeah, damage has been done, and nobody can turn it upside. The Gitteh has a trust issue. Nobody can trust him. How can you bring a person like Gitteh, even though you want to even appoint him as a protocol to your administration? Anytime that he felt angered or he felt like he's been rejected or he's not been treated the way he wants, he will take out whatever is out there. This is where the government of Adamawa has a problem because so many people are out there. Everybody's running helter and skelter looking for position, and they don't respect institutions and individuals. In the Gambian context, we come from social settings, and our social settings has dynamics, and our dynamics do tell us that we need to respect individuals, particularly our elders. And even though if they're not our elders, but if they hold position of responsibility, you respect them based on that position of responsibility. Respecting them doesn't mean that when they lie, you will take up the lie and just keep quiet. No, there are certain things that you can address them privately and not in public. But when you are angry in social media, every Gambian, whenever we are angry, we go to social media. The issue is each and every one of us have felt betrayed. We have been damaged. But the issue is not everything that you take to face social media. You don't go and take social media, Instagram, Twitter. You don't have that issue. Solve your issue internally. But Gitteh has just lost it and he has destroyed his future. Whatever, I don't know, whatever is out there, God knows. But to me, nobody can trust Gitteh. And me, I would advise the government not to even put him at the corridor of power. Because these are people that are not to be trusted. They're not trustworthy. They have already lost it because their integrity is at stake. Because how can you come and say the first lady approached you, even though if the first lady spoke to you? Secondly, also I'll also advise the first lady, if you occupy the position that the highest position that you can think of as a first lady, you don't have to you don't have to come so low, whereby you even have to because you are very much frustrated, or maybe you thought that this will help you to achieve something. No, sometimes you need to position yourself that you are good, you have that talent, you have that competence. Nobody put you in that position, but you are the very big one who put yourself in that. Even people who come and claim, no, because we help your husband so that he can be elected. It's us. No. The husband has tried he also has positioned himself, he placed himself. Your one vote does not make one person to be a leader. No. Because nobody knows, even though whether you even have voted for the president, because it was between you and God. It was secret ballot. Was it open? If we open up, the Kanka one will be open. But the issue is Gambians. The presidency, we have to put it aside when it comes to issue. Because now look at the example now. Not only on the Gitteh issue, but if you look at even the Gam Petroleum, the issue of Gam Petroleum came to the public before even something, because almost about 3 months it happened, and people that work in Gam Petroleum, they understand what was going on, and they were even sharing information to people that they know outside, so that these people will start talking. You don't work for an institution and you start undermining. It doesn't make a sense. If you don't like a system, leave it out and just move around, and then you can come and counteract. And because you've been working there, you have an experience, but you cannot be an internal person, and at the same time you are feeding people out there, and then you are trying to undermine, and then at the same time you are even eating left, right, and center. You are so corrupt. But because you don't like the individual that occupies that position, the Gambian, we have a DNA. And that DNA, if we don't cage it, the country is not going to move anywhere. We are going to be the worst country. And it will continue to be a country. But a country that depends on handouts, is that a country? A country that doesn't have an independence, a country that doesn't even have a sovereignty? Is that a country? So I will stop from here. I'm so angry with Gitteh because I don't like people who talk outside on individuals. Because how can you talk about the first lady bringing a commotion or a division between two wives? And even though I had the president even reach out, but how can the president also go so low to reach out to Ahmed Gitteh? Sometimes I'm so tired. For me, I'm done with Gambia. I'm just tired about Gambian issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jallo. Dr. Conte, briefly, please.
And that's why, Dr. Jallo, we belong to the classroom. Even if we are 90 years old, we can get a wheelchair and just sit and teach. But I love my two Seattle brothers, Pata PJ and Baba Ja. Baba Pata PJ is in the Gambia. Baba Ja came. Last Thursday, he said it was so cold. He was speaking in. I think he spoke Wolof, Mandinka. Did he speak Fula? Well, he was saying all kinds of stuff, but he was happy. So I love these two brothers. But thank God the three of us, we did not go to Gambia looking for jobs. This is. I just can't believe it. I don't want to go further because.
All right, thank you, Dr. Conte. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you, Dr. Jallo. Thank you, Dr. Conte. I hope you guys have a wonderful day and enjoy the game, the match going on today, Bengals and the Rams.
Who gonna win? Who gonna win?
I'm rooting for the Bengals, man. My good friend is in Ohio. Obi Stiller is in Ohio, so I gotta root for him, man.
I think I'm gonna go for the Rams because the Bengals beat the Bengals beat Pittsburgh, so I'm retaliating.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. We'll meet again next Sunday.
Hey, no, the guys from how about this gentleman? He's quiet. He's from Wisconsin. What happened to his team?
Who?
Who?
You know the team. You know your team.
The Packers?
Yeah. What happened?
No, we are good. We are trying. No, don't worry. We are good. Sometimes it happens. Whatever happens, happens. But we've been there. We've been tested. Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it happens. You can start. You can start good, and all of a sudden the finishing. We always have a problem. At the tail end, finishing is always our problem. But I think we'll come back stronger.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see.
See you next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take care.
See you next Sunday, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Good day, guys.
yeah. Have a good Sundays.
You too.